What if the future of the Dutton legacy was decided not on the ranch, but on the battlefield of World War II? A son torn between duty and blood, a father broken by loss, and a family secret that could destroy everything they've built. Yellowstone changed the game, but 1944 might rewrite the entire story. The story begins in a time when the world itself is at war, but for the Dutton family, the real battle is just beginning. By 1944, the ranch is no longer just land. It is a symbol of survival, sacrifice, and legacy. Spencer Dutton is no longer the man we once saw fighting through Africa and love. He is older now, hardened by grief, and shaped by years of silence after losing Alex. That pain never left him. It simply turned him into something colder, something more dangerous. Spencer runs the Yellowstone ranch with a firm hand. There is no room for weakness anymore. Every decision he makes carries the weight of everything he has lost. The land is growing, the cattle are multiplying, but inside, Spencer is stuck in the past. He speaks less, trusts fewer people, and spends most of his time away from others, riding across the land like a ghost who refuses to leave. But the real focus of the story is not just Spencer, it's his son, John Dutton II. Now a young man in his early 20s, John stands at a crossroads that will define his entire life. On one side, there is the ranch, his birthright, his responsibility, and the legacy of the Dutton name. On the other side, there is war. World War II is at its peak, and young men across America are being called to fight. John is no exception. And this is where the tension begins. John is not just any soldier. He is a Dutton. The blood in his veins carries generations of struggle, power, and pride. But war doesn't care about legacy. It doesn't care about family names. If John chooses to leave, he risks everything, not just his life, but the future of the ranch itself. Spencer knows this. And this is where father and son begin to clash. Spencer doesn't want John to go to war. Not because he is afraid, but because he understands something John does not yet see. War changes a man forever. Spencer has already lived that transformation. He knows that if John leaves, the boy who returns, if he returns, will not be the same. But John sees it differently. To him, staying on the ranch feels like hiding. He believes that fighting in the war is his duty, not just as an American, but as a man trying to prove himself. He wants to step out of his father's shadow. He wants to earn his name, not inherit it. This emotional conflict builds slowly, but powerfully. Every conversation between them feels heavy. There are no long speeches, no dramatic breakdowns, just short, sharp exchanges filled with unspoken pain. Spencer sees Alex every time he looks at John. And John sees a man he respects, but cannot fully understand. At the same time, something else is quietly building in the background. The ranch is not as secure as it once was. With Spencer growing older and John possibly leaving, enemies begin to take notice. Land disputes, hidden claims, and old rivalries start to resurface. The Yellowstone ranch has always been a target, but now it looks vulnerable. And then comes the shadow from the past. Far away from Montana, in Boston, a different branch of the Dutton story has been growing. Elizabeth, who left years ago carrying Jack Dutton's child, has built a life away from the ranch. But bloodlines don't disappear, they wait. And now, that past is getting closer. Back on the ranch, there are whispers. Rumors of a rightful heir. Someone who may have just as much claim to Yellowstone as John himself. At first, it feels distant, almost unimportant. But slowly, it becomes clear, this is not just a rumor. It is a threat. Because if that child returns, everything changes. The Dutton legacy has always been about control, who owns the land, who leads the family, and who carries the name forward. But now that control is slipping. And for the first time in years, the future of Yellowstone feels uncertain. As tensions rise both at home and across the world, the story builds toward one unavoidable truth. The Duttons are about to face a war on two fronts. One fought with guns and soldiers, and the other fought with blood, legacy, and betrayal. As 1944 moves deeper into chaos, the pressure on the Dutton family reaches a breaking point. The war overseas is no longer just distant news. It becomes personal. John Dutton II makes his decision. Despite Spencer's silent resistance, he chooses to leave the ranch and join the fight. Not out of rebellion, but out of belief. He wants to prove that he is more than just a name tied to land. He wants to become a man his father cannot question. The moment he leaves, something shifts. Spencer doesn't try to stop him anymore. There are no emotional goodbyes, no final speeches. Just a quiet understanding between two men who see the world differently. But behind Spencer's stillness is something far more powerful than anger, fear. Not fear of losing the ranch, but fear of losing the last piece of Alex he has left. With John gone, the Yellowstone ranch feels emptier than ever. Spencer throws himself into work, but the silence becomes louder. Every corner of the land reminds him of what he has lost and what he might lose next. And just as that loneliness begins to settle, the real storm arrives. From Boston, the past finally returns. Jack Dutton's child, now grown, steps into the story with a purpose. This is not a simple reunion. This is a claim, a demand, a challenge to everything Spencer has built over the years. Because this isn't just about family, it's about ownership. The arrival of this new heir creates a tension that cannot be ignored. Unlike John, who grew up on the land, this outsider sees Yellowstone differently. To them, it's not just a home, it's a right that was taken away before they even had a chance to understand it. And that difference in perspective becomes dangerous, because they don't come alone. With them comes influence, legal pressure, and people who don't respect the Dutton way of life. This is no longer a fight that can be handled with strength alone. It becomes a battle of control, power, and strategy. And for the first time, Spencer finds himself in a position where brute force may not be enough. At the same time, new enemies begin to circle the ranch. With John gone and uncertainty growing inside the family, outsiders see an opportunity. Land developers, rival ranchers, and powerful businessmen begin to move closer, each one hoping to take a piece of Yellowstone while it stands divided. The threats come quietly at first, but their intentions are clear. Take the land. Break the family. And Spencer knows exactly what that means. This is no longer about survival. This is about war. But unlike the war John is fighting overseas, this one has no rules. No uniforms. No clear enemies. Just shifting alliances and hidden betrayals. Every decision Spencer makes now carries consequences that could either protect the ranch or destroy it completely. Meanwhile, far from home, John faces his own reality. War strips everything down to its core. There are no last names, no family legacies, only survival. And slowly, the boy who left the ranch begins to change. The world he once saw as black and white turns into something far more complicated. Every battle, every loss, every moment pushes him further away from the person he used to be. And just like Spencer feared, war begins to reshape him. But it also does something else. It hardens his resolve. Because deep down, no matter how far he goes, one thing remains clear. He is a Dutton. And no matter what he becomes out there, he knows where he belongs. Back in Montana, the tension finally reaches its peak. The conflict over the ranch escalates into something unavoidable. Lines are drawn. Sides are chosen. And for the first time, the fight is not just outside the family, it is within it. Trust begins to break. Loyalties are tested. And the idea of family itself starts to lose meaning. Spencer stands at the center of it all. A man who has already lost too much, now forced to fight one last time to protect what remains. But this time, the enemy isn't just standing across from him. It's standing inside his own bloodline. And as the episode builds toward its final moments, one question hangs heavier than ever. When John returns, what will he come back to? A united family, or a legacy already torn apart?